One fighter jet achieved something that sounds impossible in modern warfare: a 241-to-2 kill ratio in combat exercises. And here's the twist: the two losses weren't even the jet itself. They were F-15s. The F-22 Raptors came through untouched. This wasn't a simulation against outdated aircraft or rookie pilots. The opposition included frontline F-15s, F-16s, and Navy FA-18 Super Hornets, America's best fourth-generation fighters, flown by experienced combat aviators, and they got absolutely decimated. "They couldn't see us," one pilot said afterward. Now imagine you're a Russian or Chinese military planner staring at those numbers. Your entire strategy for air combat, decades of doctrine, billions in research, thousands of trained pilots, just became obsolete because there's an American fighter in the sky that can see you long before you see it, kill you before you know it's there, and disappear before your wingman realizes what happened. This is the F-22 Raptor, and it's so dominant that Congress literally made it illegal to sell to anyone, even America's closest allies. Let me show you why Russia and China have been scrambling for 2 decades to catch up to a jet that first flew in 1997. The numbers from training exercises tell a story that should terrify any potential adversary. During 2007 red flag exercises, the F-22 achieved an unprecedented kill ratio of 144.0 against fourth-generation fighters. Not 144-10, not 144-5, 144-0. Over a 2-week red flag exercise, the F-22 accounted for 30% of the Blue Force, but achieved 49% of all kills. But here's what makes those statistics truly devastating. Even after F-22 pilots used up all 8 of their air-to-air missiles, they didn't have to leave the fight. Protected by their stealth, they could fly ahead of their forces, using their sensors to guide non-Raptor aircraft toward enemies no one else could spot. They became airborne forward controllers, increasing the combat effectiveness of every aircraft in the battle space. Think about what that means tactically. You're not just fighting the F-22s you can't see. You're fighting every aircraft they're coordinating, all of which suddenly know exactly where you are while you're still searching blind. The F-22 combines super cruise, super maneuverability, stealth, and integrated avionics in a single weapons platform, capabilities no other operational fighter has fully achieved. Super cruise means it flies supersonic without afterburners, extending range while remaining harder to detect. The thrust vectoring engines enable maneuvers that defy traditional aerodynamics, and the stealth characteristics make it nearly invisible to radar. But it's the sensor fusion that truly separates the Raptor from everything else. The F-22's advanced avionics suite allows pilots to see all air and ground threats in a single picture, without having to build it mentally. While enemy pilots are trying to piece together fragments of information from different systems, the F-22 pilot sees the entire battlefield laid out clearly, updating in real time. Now here's where the story gets fascinating, and reveals just how threatened Russia and China actually are. In 1998, Congress explicitly coded into law that the Raptor was not for sale. Not to anyone, not under any circumstances. Israel, Japan, and Australia repeatedly asked for permission to purchase the Raptor, but were denied. Japan was particularly desperate for the F-22. Facing China's growing military power and Russia's Su-35s patrolling nearby, Tokyo needed 5th-generation capability. They offered to help fund continued production. The Pentagon was actually open to the idea, but Congress shut it down hard. Washington feared that subcontractors, or even a crash, could allow reverse engineering. China had already analyzed debris from an F-117 shot down in Serbia in 1999 to improve its J-20. The stakes with F-22 technology were even higher. This export ban reveals something crucial. America considers the technology gap created by the F-22 so significant that sharing it, even with the closest allies, represents an unacceptable national security risk. That assessment speaks volumes about how threatened adversaries should feel. Russia and China have both poured resources into developing their own fifth-generation fighters, specifically to counter the F-22. Russia's Su-57 Felon and China's J-20 Mighty Dragon represent decades of effort to close the gap. But here's the uncomfortable truth for Moscow and Beijing. They're not there yet. China's J-20 thrust-to-weight ratio rose from 0.95 to 1.0 with its domestically built WS-15 engine, but the F-22's thrust-to-weight ratio sits at 1.3. That difference means the Raptor can out-accelerate, out-climb, and out-maneuver the J-20 in virtually any engagement. The J-20 has comparable stealth capabilities to the F-22 but sacrifices maneuverability. Russia's Su-57 faces even harsher assessments. Expert evaluations place the J-20's radar cross-section between 0.8 and 0.3 square meters, well ahead of Russia's Su-57, which is widely considered the least stealthy of the operational fifth-generation fighters. Only 32 Su-57s have been built, while nearly 200 F-22 examples have been produced. That production gap isn't just about money. It reflects the technical challenges Russia faces making the aircraft work reliably. The Russians do have one advantage. The Su-57 can carry the R-37M air-to-air missile, which grants an engagement range of 400 kilometers, allowing it to potentially neutralize enemy aircraft from a distance greater than twice that of the F-22. But there's a catch. To use that missile, the Su-57 has to light up its radar to provide guidance. And the moment it does, the F-22's radar is designed to outrange enemy threats, detecting and classifying them before they detect the Raptor. It becomes a deadly game of who sees who first. And in that game, stealth wins. The Su-57 can launch missiles from 400 kilometers away, but it has to know where to aim. The F-22 can get close enough to fire without ever being detected. Provided it can evade enemy radar, the F-22 can set up an ambush before the enemy knows it's in the area. American pilots train for this advantage relentlessly. The F-22 dominates the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act, the cycle that determines air combat victory. The fighter that completes that loop faster wins. And when you can observe without being observed, you're completing your OODA loop while your opponent is still stuck at step 1. Recent upgrades are making the F-22 even more formidable. The Air Force is integrating low-drag stealth external fuel tanks that extend range to more than 1,400 kilometers without refueling while maintaining stealth profile. New IRST sensors, mounted in external pods, can detect targets at over 130 kilometers and approximately 90 kilometers against low observable stealth aircraft. And the AIM-260 Joint Advanced Tactical Missile will replace the AIM-120, further extending the Raptor's already impressive reach. But here's what keeps Russian and Chinese planners awake at night. The F-22 isn't even America's final form. The program employs an agile strategy to continuously develop, test, and rapidly field improvements, including rolling next-generation air dominance technologies back into the Raptor. Technologies developed for sixth-generation fighters are being retrofitted into the F-22, keeping it ahead of competitors who are still trying to match its original capabilities from 1997. China has responded with massive investment in stealth technology. They've unveiled multiple new stealth fighter designs, expanded production of the J-20, and developed advanced radar systems specifically designed to counter stealth aircraft. Russia has deployed the Su-57 to Syria and Ukraine, gathering combat data while keeping the aircraft far from situations where it might be shot down and analyzed by Western intelligence. But neither country has achieved parity, and they know it. The fact that both nations have made countering the F-22 a top priority for their air forces reveals how much they fear this aircraft. When your entire military modernization strategy revolves around developing countermeasures to a single American fighter jet, you're essentially admitting it represents an existential threat to your air power. The F-22 first flew on September 7, 1997, and entered service in December 2005. That means this aircraft is 20 years old in operational service, nearly 30 years old in design, and it still dominates everything Russia and China have fielded since. Imagine being a Russian or Chinese fighter pilot who finally gets to fly your country's most advanced stealth fighter. The aircraft that took decades and billions to develop. You're told it's comparable to American technology, that it gives you a fighting chance. Then intelligence reports come in about those exercise results. 144 to 0, 241 to 2, and you realize that even America's training exercises, where pilots are learning and making mistakes, produce kill ratios that would end wars. That's why Russia and China fear the F-22 Raptor. Not because it's a good fighter, not because it has impressive specifications, but because it fundamentally broke the rules of air combat. And 28 years later, nobody has figured out how to put them back together. The F-22 will serve until the 2030s, when its replacement from the Next Generation Air Dominance program becomes operational. Until then, it remains what the Air Force calls it. The F-22 cannot be matched by any known or projected fighter aircraft. Russia and China aren't just afraid of what the F-22 is, they're terrified of what its successor will be.